time to go big or go home with the Division Manager of Primary Residential Mortgage in Hendersonville, Tennessee. Now, here's the entrepreneur and mortgage extraordinaire himself, James Harper.
What would your mama say?
Go big or go home.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and listening to this week's podcast of Go Big or Go Home. We're coming to you from our secret headquarters in beautiful Hendersonville, Tennessee. The sun is shining and the temperature is perfect today, so we're in a nice positive state going into this session of Go Big or Go Home. So let's get things going, and today hopefully we will provide you with some bit of inspiration or motivation to move the needle in your life. I'm James Harper once again, and my goal is to help you discover who you really are and what you're meant to do in your next chapter of this thing called life. And so I want you, again, as I say every show, to sit back for the next 30 to 45 minutes and think bigger and more exciting things for yourself. I believe that everything is possible if you kind of leave your excuses at the door. So listeners, welcome Danny Hale to the show today. Danny comes to us with a plethora, I love using that word, of experience that he will share, some good and maybe some not so good. But his passion for not quitting or giving up is the real message for today. Danny began his career in the home building industry in 1985. Seems like a long time ago, but also probably seems like yesterday to you. And Danny's basically been in the real estate industry for over 30 years now and has done a wide range of projects ranging from, as I said, the home building side of things, home building, building houses and home building, to land development, to property management, and I'm sure he'll share a few other things of what he's gotten into. Really not sure what Danny currently owns or some of the companies he has outside of Hale Realty in Hendersonville, Tennessee. But welcome to the show, Danny.
Thank you, James. Appreciate you having me here.
Yeah, we're very happy to have you here today, and we want to get things started right off the bat, and we want to just kind of tell us where you grew up and what your life was like as a kid.
Sure. Well, James grew up here in Middle Tennessee in Mount Juliet, and had a good childhood, intact family. We had, we were a blue-collar family trying to make it in a middle-class neighborhood with lots of challenges growing up. And my father was in the building construction business, and my mother worked for the federal government. And I tell people when I was growing up, my parents provided everything I needed, but if there's anything I wanted, I needed to get that on my own.
All right, so let's talk about that. I know we've shared on the show a few times. I think when you're younger, you always you have this innate ability or intuitive ability to kind of somewhat know what your real personal trait or your personal characteristic is about yourself. And I know when I was growing up, I was selling everything, but yet I went into engineering, which doesn't make any sense, and that's another whole story in itself. But I was selling anything from cheese and sausage to newspapers to selling baseball cards. What are some of the things that you did as a kid that kind of helped prepare you for your entrepreneurship as you got older?
Sure. I was the youngest of three children, so I had the benefit of watching my brother and sister make many mistakes growing up, and I usually would pivot in the different direction. So I was blessed to be the youngest of three, so I avoided a lot of the trouble that they got into. I knew where to hide the cookies, so to speak, so that I wouldn't get caught. But I started working when I was 10 years old, running a paper route, 3 o'clock in the morning. Did that all the way through high school. I played football in the afternoon, practiced sports, other sports. And the only time I had to make extra money was in the morning. So we would get up about 3 o'clock and run a paper route. And of course that, when you're used to getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning, it gives you a different perspective on the day.
Yeah, I think, well, I don't even know if paper routes exist anymore.
They do,
but
there's not many of them left.
I haven't seen any young kids throwing papers around like we did when we were growing up. But definitely times have changed, and the work ethic out there in the world and some of the younger generation. I mean, it's just even hard to explain that. Some of the things we used to do as a younger child to try to make ends meet, to try to buy those expensive things. I remember I saved up all my money to buy my very first polo shirt. My mom wouldn't buy it for me.
Right.
And I just had to have this polo shirt. And I'll never forget it. It was dark green and with an orange emblem on it. And I thought, man, when I bought that, I thought I was number one, rich. And number two, I thought I was the coolest thing in the world. But what I got from that little experience there was the feeling of pride, the feeling that I worked for something and I got what I wanted. And it wasn't necessarily to be a status quo. Well, maybe it was back then. But reflecting back on it today, it was really just about achieving something and being in a status of positivity in my own mind. And so one of the things that I wanted to ask you, because I think we all we kind of get in this negative state sometimes, even as successful as you've been in your journey through life and your ups and downs, but certainly even where you are today, I'm sure you go through times where you don't feel so positive about what you're doing or the state that you're in. How do you respond to that?
Well, at my age, it's more complacency that bothers me more than anything. You get to a point in life where you are comfortable, and that is a scary place to be, right? Because you're afraid to go out and make new challenges on yourself. You're unwilling to take risks. That's the biggest challenge currently that I face because if you're not willing to take risks, there's going to be no reward.
Mm-hmm. And so that I want to come back to that because that's a very, very key word there. You said is complacency. But there was a time in your life when you weren't complacent and you did take those risks. So what was the very first risk that stands out in your mind that you had to go big or go home because you knew all your chips were in the pot?
Well, I can probably tell that story.
There might be a few of them.
Yeah, there's probably a few of those, but I was 19 years old. I'd always had a dream of going to University of Tennessee. From the time I was a childhood. I was born on campus at University of Tennessee. All of my family was from Knoxville. That was always my childhood dream. Graduate high school, no money to go to university on, so I go to Vol State Community College for a couple of years. After my sophomore year there, still trying to struggle on how I'm going to get the money to go to school. So my dad approaches me and says, "Hey, I've got an idea. Let's see if we can find a lot, and if you'll help me build a house this spring," the spring's quarter at that time, the college was on quarter, said, "We will make any money on it. I'll split the money with you, and you can take yours and use it on your tuition to go to school." I said, "Well, that's a great idea." So sure enough, we started construction in the spring. We started building the home ourselves. We bought a lot, had a realtor help us. And sure enough, a couple of weeks into the project, somebody comes along, realtor comes back and says, "Look, I've got the house sold for you." That's great. I've got the money to go to school on, right? So everything is good. And so we continue construction throughout the summer. And, another 6 weeks comes in, the realtor comes back and says, "Hey, guys, you're not going to believe this," but he said, "I've got 2 more clients who would like for you to build this same house on 2 more lots I've got down at the end of the street. Would you be willing to do it?" Well, we looked at each other and said, "Sure."
So easy the first time.
That summer, I made more money than an 18-year-old ought to have, right? And my die was cast. There was no more going back to the university. I went all in.
So were you project managing this, or were you actually hands-on?
Brother, we were. I tell the story that the first day we were there, my dad handed me a shovel, and I said, "What's that for?" He said, "We're going to dig the footings."
All right, so you and your dad actually did the raw labor on
All of it.
All of it.
Yeah.
Every bit of it.
We dug the footings, laid the concrete block, framed the house, put the roof on it, put the siding on it, put the stone on the foundation, set the cabinets, put the drywall in. We were all in.
Yeah, and so what was the biggest thing you learned just from building that very first house? Not only just personally, but just what did it do for you?
I learned the cost of getting those calluses on your hands that my dad had always had. How do your hands get that rough?
And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I want all the listeners to know that this wasn't like it was an investment opportunity that you and your dad had. Yes, there was investment from monetarily, but your investment was also your labor.
He took his life savings. I took a little bit of money from a student loan that I'd already borrowed. We went all in on this. I mean, it was make or break from the very beginning.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so when you were going through that particular experience, did you at the moment, and this is a long time ago, not to reflect your age or anything, but when you were going through that, was there fear? Were you scared, or were you just so into the moment that you didn't want to? I mean, all you saw was what was right in front of you, and you were just plowing ahead.
James, when you've got nothing to lose, it's pretty easy to take a risk, right? So we had a little bit of cash. That was it, and we went all in. Was it scary? I don't think so. I don't think
probably
I was.
not at 18 for
not
you,
at 18,
but maybe
I was
for your
scared.
dad.
For my dad, it may have been, yeah.
Right.
And but
you probably didn't know any better.
I didn't know any better, right?
Right.
And but I learned a lot of lessons that summer, and were able to parlay that into what's been a 30-year career.
All right. So what was your next parlay? And what was that next parlay that helped or said, hey, I'm going to take a chance again? And I mean, I'm sure there were several things in between, but what was the next major milestone of a parlay?
Sure. So after building 4 or 5 homes and kind of getting to know the hands-on construction methods on how to do that, realtor over in Wilson County, now deceased, she came to me and said, hey, I've got this property that I've got for sale. I can't get anybody to look at it. Would you be willing to come look at it? I said, well, I'll come look at it. I don't know that I have the money to buy anything. Well, she takes me to the property, and she, it wasn't the best property in the best location at the time, but she takes me to the property, and we look at it, and they want $65,000 for this home in 5 acres. And while I was standing there, I said, and I had no way to know whether I could buy it. And I said, if we can get financing, I'll buy it.
Nice and confident.
So we went to the bank, and we put a contract on it. We went to the bank, and I kind of did this on my own. I went to the bank, and they put in an application. Now, remember, I'm at this point, I'm probably 19 years old. The bank goes out, sends an appraiser out. Thankfully, he didn't go in the house. He did a drive-by appraisal. And it appraised for $120,000. Piece of property I was paying $65,000 for. So I went to the bank to close out on the property, and we had sold a couple of houses, so I had the money for the down payment. But I go into the bank, and they hand me a check back for $19,000. And I'm just kind of keeping my mouth quiet because I'm not sure what's going on here. And they had it appraised, and back then the lending laws weren't as they are now, right. So they loaned me based on the value of the property, not based on the purchase price. So I went in here, bought the property, and walked out with $20,000. And I was in the development business.
Yeah. I mean, wow, that is interesting.
Yeah.
And so you thought, how long has this been going on, and let's keep doing it?
Listen, I thought that I had been cast when I built those first couple of homes and made a little bit of money, but when I made the money, and I don't remember how much the total was, maybe $80,000 or $100,000 on that first development deal I did. I knew what I was going to be doing the rest of my life.
Right, and how old were you then?
19.
19.
Yeah.
So, needless to say, Knoxville never happened.
I've been to a lot of football games, but I never went to school there. Yeah.
You got a taste of the money. You got a taste of And it's really not about, of course it's about the money. But what you started realizing by being able to make money is the freedom that it opened up for other things, whether that's your personal life, whether that's traveling, whether that's doing other deals. It gave you flexibility. And I've always said it's really hard to get ahead in life sometimes just making a paycheck. And a lot of people, a lot of listeners out there will say, well, that's all I can do. That's all I'm willing to, I can't gamble on my family, on my not being able to provide for my kids or education or my spouse or maybe extended family. What would you say to those people that haven't been able, before you answer that, it's interesting because my daughter is, I get a call from the school yesterday and she's getting tested for the gifted and talented. And so I'm very proud of her for that, and I'm super excited about it. But when I was listening to the coordinator explaining how the reason why at the age of 10 or fourth grade they want to start testing children for this is because research has shown that if they don't grab a hold of that creativity or that artistic ability or whatever is their calling is, or whatever their highest and best use is as on this earth, it gets suppressed and it never comes back.
Right.
And I thought that was just a fascinating phenomenon there, because I think that's what happens to a lot of people out in the world. My mom, I didn't even know she was an artist. She started painting these beautiful paintings at like age 60.
Right.
And I never knew she was that artistic, but it had been suppressed for all of these years. Now she's out selling some of her art.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And so I wonder how many, I know there's millions of people out there that have probably suppressed what their higher calling is, or what they really feel like they want to be doing or should be doing, but they just don't want to take that jump.
Right.
Any thoughts of that as it relates to our listeners, and for those that maybe don't have the money to get something started, it doesn't mean it doesn't have to be entrepreneurship. It could be starting a charity, or it could be art,
right?
Whatever that might be.
Well, I'll go back to this. When I was probably the most sage advice or bit of wisdom I ever received was from my father, who had an 8th grade education. He said the difference with growing up, the difference in us and rich folks, we work for our money, and the rich folks' money works for them. Right?
Right.
So you have to get in a position to have your money working for you, so that when you're sleeping, your money's earning return.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
When you're at work, your money's earning return. And hopefully sometime in your life, you'll get to the point where your investments are greater than your paycheck. How do you do that? Well, there's nothing wrong with working 80 hours a week. I've done it. I still work 55 to 60 hours a week. Now, when I take my time off, I take time off and enjoy it. But when I'm at work, I'm willing to commit 50, 55 hours a week. Usually, the last one there when everybody else is gone, to be able to sustain the position that I've gotten to, right? So if you're working a 40-hour-a-week job, that may not be enough. Maybe you need to do something else on the weekends to earn enough money so that you can start making investments in different areas of your life, right? And so I think that's important to know that, don't look at life as a 40-hour week. There may be a day when you can work 20 hours a week, but if you're not taking risk and going all in, and you're in a job that you enjoy and you're having fun, it's okay to work a little more to get something to start your investment with. Yeah.
So let's keep on going through your timeline here, and so you've started this home building career. You've started this land development career very early on. And then you also then proceeded to jump into buying and selling real estate as a realtor for local real estate company here. What was next? What kept you? What was the next big thing that you wanted to do or jump into or did?
James, when I was young, I kind of consider myself an observer of people, right? I try to watch what other people do and emulate those things that other people have success in.
You did that to your brothers and sisters.
I did that with my brothers and sisters. I did it with my father. I did it with my mother. The things that they could do well, I would try to emulate those. The things that they weren't very good at, I would observe that and stay away from it, right? And or try to improve on it if I thought I could accomplish that. So understanding what your calling is and really boiling it down to the one thing. There are people that are always trying a new scheme or a new focus or trying to reinvent themselves. And really what it's about is taking all the things that you can imagine you're doing and start narrowing that down to the one thing that you're good at, that you're happy at doing, and that you're successful at. And if you're happy at what you're doing, you will be successful at it eventually.
Yeah, and successful doesn't always mean monetarily, but most of the time that's what does happen. Most of the time that if you're truly happy with what you're doing and you're all in, or you dive into whatever that passion is, naturally things transcend themselves into ultimately making money.
You have to continue to redefine success, and I'll give you an example of that, and I do that when we have new agents come on board at our company. We define success for them. We are going to help you be successful, but in order to be successful, you have to define what success is to you. So let's say that you're retired from an engineering company and you're looking for something to do in your retirement years. Well, success may be to you of being able to work 15 hours a week and earn an extra $12,000 for the year. And if you can do that and you can play golf and you can winter in Florida, that is success to you, right? You take a young person just out of college, success to them may be getting a promotion to the point where they're making $50,000 a year. Somebody that's making $50,000 a year in their first decade of work, success to them may be, I'd be successful if I could ever save up enough money for a down payment on a home. And then there are those people that go into business and they really don't define success, and so they really never know if they were successful or not, because if you don't define it, how can you measure it?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And so you kept on going, and did you ever fall down? Did you ever have a low point where you said, man, this didn't go so well? And what was that?
Yeah, but there's, in all of our lives and things like that, people suffer, through personal tragedies, divorce. Luckily, I've never been divorced. And I think the two greatest things that have happened in my financial life have been never being divorced.
Yeah.
Right? That's true. That's huge.
Yeah.
And the other thing is having some struggles early on in my career. When I was in my 20s, the 86 tax law went into effect. Well, by 1989, all of the savings and loans in America, essentially every one of them went out of business, right? They all failed. The FDIC, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, was on the verge of failing, and the Congress had to come in and set up what they call the RTC, the Resolution Trust Corporation, to take over distressed assets from the FDIC, who were taking them over from the various banks that were going out of business, all because of the stroke of a pen on 86 tax law. So this banking crisis that we went through in the 2000s was really, from bank failure standpoint, was nothing compared to what we went through in the late 80s, right? So we get into a situation where the banks are cutting off lines of credit. And so we had a builder line that was cut off as our main builder line. And so it took some time to struggle back from that, and, got to the point where we had to start negotiating with some of our vendors to pay them later than would normally be the case, And, you go through 2 or 3 years of that before you get back on your feet. And so you just have to say all in, if I owe you money, I can't pay you today, but I will pay you, so stick with me. And luckily we had good vendors and good friends in business, and we were able to struggle through that and come out better on the other side.
Yeah, I know for everyone out there in sales, I know me personally, when I've been in some really tough spots in my own business, I never have always known what the immediate or the long-term solution is, and maybe sometimes I'm always trying to figure that out, and still even today. But one thing I always know that's going to give me immediate relief is selling. I can sell myself out of whatever situation I might be in to get into a better place, whether that's for my personal or my business. And sometimes you just got to pull your bootstraps up and just get to work.
Yeah.
And the younger generation out there is having a hard time with that, of just pulling their bootstraps up and getting to work. And it's not to stereotype the younger generation compared to our generation, because by no means am I trying to do that. But at the same time, there's just, you can just look all the way down to trades.
Right.
Trades just aren't taught in school. It's not anyone's fault in our generation, but our society in general, those opportunities just aren't there like they were when we were younger, and so it's starting to have a compound effect in our country.
I will tell you, I think there's more opportunity today than there ever has been in the history of America. I don't believe there's diminishing opportunities, or we see some of the people that you can use Jeff Bezos for an example, who worked on his own, put everything in for 15 or 20 years before Amazon ever. A lot of people think Amazon has taken over the world. They've only been profitable for 4 or 5 years. But it'd been around for 20 years. Nobody knew it, right? So we look at it and we think about life and what we're going through. And a lot of people look at life and success and their careers as a sprint. I've got to hurry up and get everything done. When really we need to think about, it's okay to sprint, but you're really running a marathon. So you plan today for success you're going to have 15 years from now, not for tomorrow. You plan today for what the end result is going to be, and then you work towards it. So you set your goals, and that's one thing I've consistently done over the years. Every January, I set up my goals for the year. I set them up for 5 years, and I set them up for 10 years. And so that I can look and say, am I on track? Are these goals consistent with where I am? And can I track those goals, and can I get these things done during the year?
Well, that's a perfect segue into this word called complacency. So if you feel like you're in a complacent state, how do those goals change?
Well, I think I struggle with not becoming complacent. I don't want to be complacent, right?
And it's not that you are. It's just you don't want to have that feeling.
Right. And it is easy. It's when you have enough food on the table.
You have the cars that you want. You have the vacations.
Right.
Yes.
But going back, and I'll come back to that in just a second, if we look at our parents or our grandparents, they went to work every day to earn the food they ate that day, right? They went out on the farm, and they gathered the fruit they were going to eat that day. And if they were lucky, they had a place to store some food for a few days, maybe a spring house or something like that. We come to our parents, and they're a little further along. They had a lot of them, depending on when they were born. Some of our parents were born in the Great Depression, and they barely had enough food to eat, and it affected what they did in life. By the time our generation came along, most of us had a roof over our head, food in the refrigerator, and some of us maybe were lucky enough to buy an old junker when we turned 16 years old to drive to school, right? By the time our kids have come along, they have the nicest cars in the family, and they're driving them to school, and you go to the school and you've got 100 brand new cars, the juniors and seniors, that get brand new cars on their 16th birthday or their 17th birthday. And if they're not brand new, they're still very nice. And I think that not having a struggle in your life, not having to worry about the future, it can make young people complacent, and it can make older people who accumulate a little wealth in their life become complacent too. So I think that's across all genres, all age groups. And I think one thing that we've done for our children is we don't make them work anymore. We follow them around on baseball teams, traveling all over the country so they can play baseball. That's
just crazy. That in itself is such a huge expense between cheerleading and dance and travel baseball and all. And I don't think kids today realize how expensive that is, and that didn't exist back in our day. If we made an AAU basketball team, we traveled to like 3 cities, and they were within 20 miles of each other, and that was great.
Yeah.
But it's not overnight and costumes, and And holy cow, that's it, and the pressure that puts on the parents.
But the complacency does come in. I think that's one of the greatest things that is a barrier to success, is just saying, I'm comfortable and I may not be happy, but I'm comfortable, so I don't want to give up this paycheck to take a chance on doing something else. And especially as you get older, when you're young, and I was fortunate to be young when I started in business, so it was easy for me to go all in all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Took many years. But then later, I had children, they came along, so it was a little tougher for me to go all in because I had to have money in the account, for food and house payment and things like that. And as time goes by, you find that your life circumstances change, but you still have to avoid that complacency and say that, yes, I'm comfortable, but comfortable is not enough, for success. Comfortable doesn't mean success. Mm-hmm. It just means, and sometimes it can be the antithesis of that. It's the opposite of success.
Yeah, I mean, if you talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, they'll say probably the biggest thing that they know how they're pushing themselves is when they feel uncomfortable.
Right.
When they feel uncomfortable, they know they are really pushing the envelope on their success or whatever they're trying to achieve, and that is so true. So for you to say that you don't want to feel complacent, I think a lot of listeners out there, that's probably how they do feel or are feeling today, and it's just easy. It's easy to feel that way because it is comfortable. So if there is ever a message for today's listeners on this show, it would be, hey, it's okay to feel uncomfortable and take a chance on what you want to try to do to better yourself, better your family, better your career, be an entrepreneur or in entrepreneurship or investing or whatever that capacity is.
Right.
What do you think you're outside of? I know you've got a beautiful wife and children, and they're off in their journeys in life and getting started with life. What do you think your greatest achievement is outside of your family?
Outside of my family,
yeah, 'cause we know that's number one, of course. With you, you're a big family man and church going and all that kind of good stuff. And
right.
So, what's your greatest achievement that you feel that you've had in your life so far?
Well, James, outside of family, I would think that hopefully my greatest achievement is the lack of pride that I hope I don't suffer from. I've tried to never look down on somebody because of their. I try not to look up to them because they're successful, and I try not to look down on them because they're not successful. Because we're all handed a different lot in life, right? And we all handle that differently. But I have been very fortunate, in a couple of the downturns we've had in the market. We were able to see through those downturns when, quite honestly, it was bleak looking. We were able to survive that and unwind what we needed to do to start over. And inevitably, in every downturn, we came out stronger in business than we were before the downturn. So you have to anticipate those things. But I try to give back to those people who ask. I've learned that you don't give your opinion or your advice to somebody who doesn't ask you for it. But when they do ask, you have to be willing to return that, right, and give back some of what's been given to you. So I think you're a big believer in this, and known Danny for over 15 years, I think now. It's hard to believe it's been that long since we crossed paths. So we've had lots of lunches together. That's right.
We've shared a lot of personal things back and forth, and also we have done business together, with me being in the mortgage business and his company being in the real estate business. How do you think you pay it forward? How do you think you pay it forward to your everyday life, or to your peers, or to your employees? What's your pay it forward mentality in giving back?
Well, I think that's a daily struggle to pay it forward. I believe that just like my father told me and other people have told me, is you have to give back more than you take out of this life, right? So you want to leave it a better place. And so you do that. Some people, you've heard of the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I kind of believe in the platinum rule, do unto others as they would have you do. So I try to be there for people who need me, and whether that's somebody to talk to because they have a struggle in their life, or if it's somebody who needs advice on how to get started in business, or what keeps a marriage together for 30 years, and I think you pay that forward in little pieces. But there are things we've had the opportunity to do. We've donated millions of dollars back into the community, and that's one of the things we're proud of with our business. We've donated the site for the Hendersonville Library that's there now. We've donated fire hall sites. We bought a school site up in White House when it was available to us to donate in. We've given tens of thousands of dollars in, back to the schools over the years, and so I think you pay it forward every day. And I think I think it's like anything else. You need to pay it forward, so you need to have a plan on papers. How am I going to give back more than I take this year, right? So I think that's important. And I know there's a lot of people that, there's a lot of criticism of big corporations and wealthy people, billionaires and millionaires and all this, but most of the people I know that have had success in life, you've seen them their whole career. They give back, and a lot of times it's quiet, but I just don't know many people who have been successful who haven't paid it forward, and then if they did have success, donate a lot of it back. We're seeing that among billionaires in the United States now, where over half of the billionaires now have agreed to give back half of their fortunes away before they die.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
but
they still get a black eye in along the media and with politics.
Bill Gates and
Warren Buffett,
Oprah.
Yeah,
the list goes on and on of how much they give back, and I think that's just a testament to entrepreneurship and some of us can give back money, others of us can give back time, right? Time.
And so, here in Sumner County, where we both primarily work, there's 270 homeless kids in Sumner County schools right now. And a lot of people don't know that. But those kids need clothes, and they're clothes banks for them, but they also need mentorship, So even if you're not in a position to give back money, you can give back time, and that may be as little as 2 or 3 hours a month. That you can find a way to give back and pay forward or pay back some of the success you've had.
Yeah. Well, Danny, I tell you, it's always a pleasure speaking with you. We could go on for many, many more minutes, just talking about life and talking about everything that we've been talking about today. And I always cherish and appreciate all the time that we do spend from time to time and getting together. Some of our lunches, of course, we're way overdue for lunch.
We are.
We really get together and we deep dive, and sometimes it goes way off topic. And sometimes we go down a rabbit hole, and I walk out of there and I sometimes say, man, I don't know how we got on that topic, but I still did learn something every time from lunch. So listen, I appreciate you being here today, my friend. And if you ever have any real estate needs, please reach out to Hale Realty here in Sumner County. You can Google them. Your website is what, Danny?
HaloRealEstate.com.
HaloRealEstate.com. He also has a commercial management company.
We have community and property management, commercial sales and leasing, residential sales and leasing. We're the largest property management company based in Sumner County with tens of thousands of people living in the communities we manage. We have an auction division and a construction division. So we would love to talk to anybody that might need some assistance.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining our show today. We hope that you're inspired and do something with your life that brings you happiness and joy. Let us know how awesome we are by leaving us a 5-star review so we can help keep this content coming your way. Like us on Facebook at Go Big or Go Home. This is James Harper. Our podcast can be seen on all the podcast platforms. and also on our website at www.nashvillemortgagelenders.com. Do what your mama said, go big or go home, and have a great day.
Primary Residential Mortgage, Inc., NMLS 3094. James Harper, Division Manager, Primary Residential Mortgage, Hendersonville, Tennessee. NMLS 71317. 131 Saundersville Road, Suite 140, Hendersonville, Tennessee 37075. Primary Residential Mortgage, Inc. is an equal housing lender. Some products and services may not be available in all states. Credit and collateral are subject to approval. Terms and conditions apply. Programs, rates, terms, and conditions are subject to change and are subject to borrower's qualification.